For the day's news at the White House, CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns joins us now. Caitlin, always great to see you. I have high confidence you'll do a great job every time. But the first thing I want to ask, I'll ask you about is something that's tanking right now, which is consumer confidence. We just want to show the survey measuring how consumers feel about their expected financial situation. It's dropped 2.7 points from where it was in June, which already marked the lowest point in a decade. And what continues to rise, of course, is inflation. It's at 9.1%, the highest in 40 years. And it's not just an American problem. The Federal Reserve is expected to raise interest rates again this week. So, Caitlin, the White House continues to say the U.S. is not in a recession. Look at the actual definition. We're not there. But look at how Americans feel and the messaging from Wall Street. It's certainly a concerning one. What is the White House trying to do to right the ship and the messaging?
Well, you put it so perfectly, Errol, that there is this definition of a recession. The White House is claiming that they're not going with the traditional definition of a recession, which is, 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth, but they're pointing to the National Bureau of Economic Research and kind of a bigger scale of data points. But the biggest, questions to them today from reporters has been, okay, well, squabbling over the definition of a recession aside, people are telling us, and they're telling us through the things like you just mentioned, the consumer confidence drop and other measures, that they're just not feeling good about the economy. So on one hand, the White House is trying to say, look, we've been trying to address this. We've been trying to push forward policies to address this. There are other things to blame, like the supply chain, the war in Ukraine. But on the same token, there are these worries that consumers have, that everyday Americans have, that they feel every time they fill up a gas tank. And as I know you've been covering on the transportation beat, airfare costs are high. We're in summer months. People can't go on vacation. Cost of everything is just really high. So this is a problem for the White House, especially heading into a midterm election year, if that persists. But that is what they were trying to address today. And I asked the White House economic advisor, Brian Deese, came out to brief reporters today for a long period of time, took a lot of questions. And one of the questions I asked was about that drop in consumer confidence. If you have all these things that you're trying to do, why are consumers just not feeling it? And he said, look, inflation is an issue. Gas prices are high. Costs of goods are high. So people, while they're spending money, they're having to spend a lot of it. And so that means they're not feeling good about the economy. They also point to things like steady job growth, the low employment numbers. They also say that people, credit and mortgage stress isn't high. So they're kind of trying to point to these other factors. But bottom line, people are just not feeling good about the economy. And that is registering some of those numbers.
And the other reality for so many people is COVID. The pandemic is not over, and it's showing up in interesting ways everywhere. Senate Democrats and Republicans now have a very small window to get things done before the August recess. Yet now Democrats have a real COVID problem. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Errol, we were reporting about how the president has COVID, but when you look on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, several lawmakers, including key senators, are also coming down with COVID. And why does that matter? Well, the Senate is evenly split 50-50, Republicans, Democrats. And so it just takes one to be out of session, essentially, to thwart anything that this White House wants to do. And, of course, they're working on this big reconciliation bill to deal with the budget priorities. Joe Manchin is one of those senators who came down with COVID. Remember, there's a 5-day isolation period, something that the president is observing himself right now, coming out of COVID. So this just goes to show how, fragile the Democratic majority is in the Senate, that it just takes one person to get sick to kind of stall everything. And as you mentioned, that calendar, that window is shrinking.
I also want to ask you about Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, planning to visit Taiwan in coming weeks, getting support from some Trump allies, while congressional Republicans, especially in the Senate, like Mitch McConnell, think this is a terrible idea. What does the White House think about this proposed visit, and what's at stake here?
Yeah, Errol, it's a really interesting dynamic where you have people like Mike Pompeo, the former Secretary of State, cheering on Pelosi for this visit. Now, the White House has been asked about this all week, and they continue to say that they are not putting anything out, that the decision has not actually been made. It's a hypothetical about whether Pelosi will actually attend. But we also know from the president's advisors that they are advising Pelosi's team, according to John Kirby, on the issue in Taiwan. Now, where the Biden administration stands is they really just don't want to upset relations with China at this moment in time. And so that's why you're kind of seeing these criticisms. But you're also hearing from former Trump officials and other people on Capitol Hill, pushing for this, not to bow down to China, essentially, and to go ahead with this visit. So we're keeping an eye on the public schedule, whether in fact it is announced. And the White House says that they are going to wait until that official announcement to officially, publicly weigh in.
All right. Great to chat with you. Caitlin Huey-Burns at the White House for us.